Welcome back to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. So this is another Archfiend deck profile. It is probably the strongest Archfiend deck I have ever made so far. So this is for the post Phantom Rage format. It uses classic Empress style beatdown. What we're going to do is we're going to go over the main deck, and we're also going to go over the side deck as well, just to kind of show you the sorts of options that I've been using in the competitive scene within the online format. So to kick things off, we'll go over the Archfiend monsters that we main deck. So for the level 8s, we open up with 2 Archfiend Emperor First Lord of Horror and 1 Archfiend Empress. So this is a pretty standard combo. You could have 3 Archfiend Emperor just because it can normal summon itself, and has that spot removal feature as well, which is pretty good. 1 Empress just because it has the revive feature. It's fairly hard to summon if it's just in your hand. You don't want it there. You want to get it into the grave as fast as possible. So not drawing into it is something that's favorable, but if you did want to bump it up, then that's just something down to your own playstyle. Of course, she has that protection effect as well if she happens to be on the field at the same time as another fiend monster. Then for our other level 8s, we play 1 Abominable Unchained Soul and 1 Curse Necrophir. Do not underestimate Curse Necrophir. 2800 beat stick. It has the effect that when it dies, it can special summon itself back from the grave, and then, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any face-up spell or trap cards on your field with different names, you can then destroy cards on the field equal to the amount of cards that you had, and it doesn't target, so it can destroy a lot of things. It's very powerful. In addition to that, if you have an Empress on the field and it dies, you can revive Curse Necrophir, and then when that dies, it will revive itself at the end of the turn as well. So the float ability of this deck is quite good. So those are all of the level 8s. Then we move on to 3 Archfiend Heiress, so being able to search out any Archfiend card that you like is very decent. All you have to do is just send it to the grave by a card effect somehow, or by battle. Pretty standard. Then we play a couple of Dark Spirit cards. So we play 2 Dark Spirit of Banishment. I always prefer this to Dark Spirit of Malice just because of the battle trap capability, being able to redirect attacks and then go straight into performing damage calculation. It can get over quite a lot of effects that do activate at the start of the damage step, so that is very good. For example, if your opponent has a Crusadia Avramax on their side of the field, you can redirect its attack using Dark Spirit of Banishment and it won't get its effect where it gains a bunch of attack points. Also monsters like Eater of Millions, okay, if you just redirect the attack, it won't be able to banish your monster because it goes straight into damage calculation. It's a very good card. And then we just play 1 Dark Spirit of Malice because it's also useful to have ability where if your opponent activates effects, you can still go ahead and special summon your monsters. It just depends on the circumstance and the scenario that you're in, but having 2 Banishment and 1 Malice has worked quite well for me, but it's down to preference which one you really prefer. And then we play 1 Fiendish Rhino Warrior, so being able to dump any fiend into the grave is very useful. So if this card is in your hand, it's very easy to just get rid of it. Doesn't matter if you draw into it early, but being able to send it straight from the deck is also quite a good way to both thin your deck and to set your graveyard up with either a Dark Spirit monster or to go through your Heiress search into like an Emperor for quick spot removal. You might want to dump a fiend straight into the grave to revive or recycle your Dark Spirit monsters, so that's also quite useful. It just depends on the scenario that you need. Very versatile card. You could also bump this up to 2. I think 3 might be a bit too much. Maybe if you're going for a Cherubini play or something, then you might want to consider multiple options of it, but just the 1 works perfectly fine. And we also play 2 Danger Mothman, so we don't really play a Danger Engine. Just having 2 in the deck enables us to discard cards that we don't need. Also, we can get rid of it using the spell card Dark Spirit's Mastery to both search out a fiend monster and also get its Dark World Dealings effect at the same time. So it's a pretty versatile card. It's all around a welcome addition. You could even bump the Danger Engine up a little bit more. You know, you could play Chupacabra if you need the extra fiend monsters. You could play a Bigfoot Thunderbird engine. Just depends on your playstyle. And then finally, we play a vanilla monster. We play the level 7 vanilla fiend Zoa. So we'll get more on this in a second, but we play 2 Zoa. And then that wraps up the monster lineup. So we have 16 monsters in the main deck, and now we move on to the spells and traps. So to kick things off, we play 3 Dark Spirit's Mastery. So Dark Spirit's Mastery has a hard once per turn effect where you discard a card and then you search for any level 8 fiend from your deck or graveyard and bring it into your hand. Using this to discard for Mothman, like I said earlier, you get the Dark World Dealings effect. You could discard Rhino Warrior into the grave, so then you bring a Emperor to your hand, for example, and then dump a Dark Spirit of Banishment, summon Emperor, it will die at the end of the turn, and then you recycle your Dark Spirit monster. Pretty decent. It's also useful for discarding Archfiend Empress, right, or any high level fiend that you don't want in your hand, and then replenishing it with, say, an Archfiend Emperor instead. It's also useful for searching out Abominable Unchained Soul, so if things do start to turn sour, you can at least special summon it from your hand, get a free destruction, and possibly discard another useful card in the process. We play 1 Terraforming. This is because we play 2 field spells in the deck, so we play 1 The Gates of Dark World. This is just for the extra discard ability and the draw power associated with it. Most of the time the monsters that you're banishing from the grave tend to be Archfiend Heiresses and Rhino Warriors, and that just sets you up for a Cursed Necrophile revival anyway. And then we also play 1 copy of Mystic Mine. You heard me, ladies and gentlemen, we play Mystic Mine in this deck. I do apologise for the people that really hate this card, but it's a fantastic stun card, and it works so well with Archfiends. Being able to summon Emperor, get a free spot removal, only for it to die at the end of the turn, so that you keep managing the amount of monsters that are on your side of the field to maintain that stun effect is really valuable, especially for this archetype, as it tends to be fairly slow in the early stages. Using Mystic Mine can really shut down decks, and even if you have it halfway through the game, it can really turn the tides and pretty much bring it back into your favor. As long as you don't do what I do and accidentally set a monster and then Mystic Mine destroys itself. Yeah, don't do that. To finish off the sort of searching ability of the field spells, we could also play a Demise of the Land, so your opponent special summons a card. Depending on the situation, you might want to search for a Mystic Mine, you might want to search for a Gates of Dark World, just depends. We play a Foolish Burial, so this is a useful extender. It's for sending a Dark Spirit to the grave, it's for sending Rhino Warrior, it's for setting up your grave with all the resources that it might need to go into your special summon plays. We also play Monster Reborn as an additional extender, so being able to bring out Empress straight to the field, only for it to die and bring back Cursed Necrophile or Archfiend Emperor or whatever you might want to summon. It's a very powerful card, it's free real estate. Also, if you happen to be against any Burning Abyss or PK Fire type builds, and they have a Cherubini in the grave, feel free to Monster Reborn it, and then you can just start dumping more cards into your graveyard. It's very good, happy days. So more dumping cards, we play 1 Void Apocalypse, discard 1 card from your hand and dump a fiend straight into your graveyard. Has the Infernoid effects, but don't worry about those. That's just a useful extended play. In case you get Ash Blossomed in one way or the other, you can still kind of discard cards that you might need. And then we play 3 Successor Soul, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. Successor Soul in an Archfiend deck, you might ask. What's going on here? Well, let me tell you. It's a very good extender card. So if you summon, for example, Archfiend Emperor, you can use its effect to banish a fiend from your grave, destroy a monster on the field. Then play Successor Soul, send the Archfiend Emperor that would have been destroyed anyway to send one of your opponent's monsters to the grave, and then you just special summon a Zoa from your hand or deck. A 2600 or potentially 2900 beat stick is pretty decent, and you've killed 2 cards as a result. So that's why I use it. It's also synergizes very well with the Dark Spirit cards. So you could bring out an Emperor, you could bring out an Empress, you could deal some damage, you could send it, summon a Zoa, revive one of your Dark Spirit monsters, and just continue that train running. The only downside to Successor Soul is that you can only attack with 1 monster on the turn that you use the card, so you need to kind of be careful on how you manage it. But particularly early game, it can be a very powerful tool to disrupt your opponent, because it just sends, it doesn't destroy. You could take the Zoas out for Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon if you wanted to run sort of like a Dragoon based build. The only thing I'll say about that is because Archfiend Emperor locks you into special summoning fiends, it kind of means that you cannot tribute over your Emperor in order to summon Dark Magician or Red Eyes. You have to summon Zoa. Fortunately, we don't have a level 8 vanilla fiend. That would have been amazing, so we're just stuck with Zoa for now. Maybe we'll add in a Metamorph at some point to realize his true potential, you know what I'm saying? But for now, right, just play the Zoas, but if you did want to run Red Eyes, you could swap it. Just bear in mind, you do hinder yourself by not being able to do the Archfiend Emperor play. And then finally, if you're playing online, because of the new Blazing Vortex set, what's out in pre-release at the moment is the new Pot of Disparity card. Very good. Being able to excavate 3 to 6 cards from your deck just by banishing extra deck monsters that we don't go into anyway, and then being able to pick one of those, add it to your hand, and you can still special summon is incredibly good. So pretty much all of the time when you run Archfiends, just drawing simply isn't enough. You kind of need to pick the exact card that you need for a given situation, and Pot of Disparity really does help with that. If you intend on playing this in a locals, for example, and obviously Blazing Vortex hasn't come out yet, you can take these out and put in a Pot of Extravagance. It's pretty much the same, you just don't get that extra versatility is all. So just to wrap up all the spells, we can play 2, they're very expensive, we can play 2 Triple Tactics Talent. So this card is just a great extender. If you do get Ash Blossoms, for example, then you can still go into this and draw 2 cards. You can shuffle one of your opponent's cards. You can change a heart card if you like, right? So it's very good. Usually I just go with the draw 2, unless we're further into the game and I'm going for lethal, then I may as well just get rid of any of your opponent's problem cards that you might want to get rid of. So that wraps up all the spells. So that is 15 spells, and now we move on to the trap cards. So in terms of like Archfiend cards, we run 1 Archfiend's Raw. So this can come in handy, being able to search it through ARS, and then you could just easily summon Empress from the grave, and it will just die and revive an Emperor, recycling one of your Dark Spirit cards. Pretty bread and butter. You don't want to run too many, like 2 at a push, but really I just run the 1. Space is tight as it is, right? And then we also play 1 Call of the Archfiend, which is basically a continuous Dark Spirit effect, so being able to dump a fiend to the grave and bring out a level 5 or higher fiend to your side of the field. Very good for pushing for game, right? It's something that perhaps your opponent doesn't expect. You can attack with an Emperor directly, and then you can use the Call of the Archfiend to dump a fiend and summon, say, Curse Necrophir or something, and attack for an additional 28 to 3000, depending on the monster that you've used. Pretty strong. Once again, because it's so easily searched, we only play 1 of it. I've tried 2, and sometimes that can work, but really at that point, it's kind of like a win more situation, so just having the 1 works perfectly fine. For Graveyard Disruption, we run 3 Fiend Griefing. So Fiend Griefing allows you to take a monster from their graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and then you can send a fiend from your deck into the graveyard. Usually that means you're going to dump a level 8 fiend, so that will revive your Dark Spirit monster. Just depends on the situation you're at the given time. And it's also not once per turn, so if you draw multiple copies, then that's just filling up the graveyard with everything you need and stopping your opponent, right? I always love it when my opponent has summoned Alistair, gone into Almirage, and then I just Fiend Griefing the Alistair from the grave back into the deck. It hurts them quite a lot. We also play 1 Metaverse, so being able to take a field spell and immediately play or add it to your hand is pretty valuable. We mainly use it for Mystic Mine, but also because we play the Gates of Darkwild, you might want to search that as well. The main deck, Skill Drain, so this is a fantastic floodgate for Archfiends, so being able to summon Archfiend Emperor under Skill Drain means you've got a 3k Bisa for that turn without even having to tribute summon. Pretty powerful. None of your effects really, aside from Emperor, maybe Unchained Soul, use their effects on the field. They all pretty much occur in the hand and in the graveyard, so main decking Skill Drain and you draw it pretty much turn 1 could, more often than not, result in a win for that round. Just having the 1 means it's fairly hard to draw, but I do just recommend running it because the times that you do draw it, it just completely destroys your opponent more often than not. And then as additional floodgate cards, we play 2 Gozen Match. So this is a tech, and depending on the price range that you're going for, I would either play the Gozen Matches or I would play the Triple Tactics talent, so take those as you will. But Gozen Match, effectively because we just run mono dark monsters, apart from Rhino Warrior, but who cares about that? None of your cards are going to be affected, but all of the combo decks that use Halqifibrax, for example, are going to have a very hard time dealing with this card. And we just run it at 2. You could bump it up to 3, just depending on what you might want to take out, but 2 is working pretty fine as is. But like I say, it just depends on your price range. Triple Tactics talent is also a very useful card, so just take your pick. And then finally, we play 2 Dogmatika Punishment. So I told you before, right? We don't really use the extra deck, so just being able to use this as an additional spot remover and then sending the likes of Ignister or Entis can easily disrupt your opponent even further, so destroying multiple cards on the field or shuffling cards depending. And okay, so that's 11 traps or 9 depending, and that pretty much wraps up the entire deck. So that's 42 cards in the main deck. Now we're going to move on to the extra deck. Depending on the side deck cards that you have, you might want to run some super poly targets, okay? So you're going to want to run a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. You might also want to run Dragostapelia as well, being able to get rid of a fusion monster, just knock Dragoon into oblivion. No one likes that card. And then finally, you can also play just another super poly target. So for example, Trifio Veritum, just get rid of 3 darks on the field. Why not? And also those cards, because you've main decked them and super polys in the side deck, you can just easily get rid of those first with Pot of Disparity. And then we pretty much run a Dogmatika protection lineup, right? So 3 Elder Entity Entis, play 1 Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, so this basically is a 4th Entis, but you activate it on your turn, right? It's not a trigger. We play 2 Wind Pegasus Ignister. Being able to shuffle your opponent's cards is really strong, and it just depends on the situation if you want to go for Entis or Ignister, or both. Play 1 Psy-Framelord Omega. This enables you to recycle your monsters back into the extra deck, it's a fairly useful card. But with Omega, you know, you could also just get rid of this and put in a third Ignister or whatever card that you might want that might help your playstyle. We play a Cyber Dragon Nova and 1 invoked Mechaba. So this allows you to have a free negating monster on the field if your opponent just happens to be playing the Dogmatika cards, and this will allow you to then just banish your opponent's monsters. It's pretty good. We do play 1 copy of the Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. So this allows you to just have a fairly high attack monster that you might want to use for Dogmatika Punishment. Also, we play 2 rank 8 monsters that we do actually go into on the occasion. We play 1 Dingirsu, so for sending power, and we also play 1 Zombie Stein, so having that 4.5k beta is useful if you've run out of options, right, and you're facing off against the Dragoon and you really don't want to deal with it through card effects, obviously, so just summon Zombie Stein and just obliterate your opponent like that. And then also, if you just happen to have Sky Thunder in your extra deck at the time of attacking, then feel free to overlay into it, and then you just have an evenly matched on your side of the field, so you know, happy days. So yeah, all the extra deck is just used for is utility. 15 monsters in the extra deck, and now let's move on to the side deck. So in my side deck, I play 3 Nibiru, so we are obviously dealing with the meta right now, you know, so being able to take out the likes of Dragon Link is really difficult. Dragon Link is probably the toughest deck I have faced so far in the meta, and I would go as far as to say it's the strongest deck. Like, other people say Dinos is the strongest, but the way Archfiends play, Dinos isn't too much of a problem in comparison to Dragon Link. So being able to rip cards straight out of our hand turn 1 is not pretty. So if we run the Nibiru in game 2, at least we have the ability to stop them in their tracks for that time. We play 3 Ash Blossom, so that's useful for stopping, for example, Alistair the Invoker, or any other card that you might need to stop with Ash. It's pretty standard. Play some spot removal, so in terms of Speller's Traps, we play 2 Cosmic Cyclone, and we also play a Harpy's Feather Duster. If we're against that classic Eldritch build, you know, just being able to banish those cards or just obliterate all of them can come in handy. I know Paleo Frogs might be making a comeback at some point, so just being able to destroy all of the Paleozoic cards that are face down can also help quite a lot. We play 3 Super Polymerization, so we've got the targets in the extra deck, so you may as well just run this in the side, get rid of Dragoon, right, get rid of any problem cards that your opponent might want to play, so long as they're dark type, right. You might want to have a Mud Dragon in the extra deck for that extra like versatility. And then we play 3 Infinite Impermanence in the side deck as well. So that sums up the deck. So it's a 42 card deck. As I say, it just depends on the text that you might want to run. You might want to go for Tactics Talent if you've got the £70 to spend on each one. Or you can play Gozen Match. It's still a fantastic stun card. So I encourage you to test it out and then just comment down below on your thoughts of its power and what you think to it. If there's anything else that you can think of that would make the deck even stronger, then I would like to hear your thoughts as well. Also look out for a couple of dual replays that will be coming in the near future, which kind of shows off this deck in all its glory. So how about that, ladies and gentlemen? So if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. If you want to see more Archfiend related duels, reviews, videos, that sort of thing, then please subscribe as well, and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when new content gets uploaded. And feel free to have a browse in the meantime, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you around.